When you use Google Sheets Explorer, you can get the best results if you have good data. And I have 3 tips for making your data as good as possible. The first tip is to be consistent. And one of the greatest ways to do that is with data validation. So in other words, by be consistent, I mean if you have this column here for department, every time you write economics, you want to make sure it's exactly the same. Even if you have an added space at the end, it can throw off the results you might get in something like Google Sheets Explorer. So if you misspell something, the same kind of things, you won't get as good data. So to do data validation, what I suggest is create a sheet in your spreadsheet that has all the values you want to use in different parts of your data. So here I have column A, that's the departments I want to use in my spending sheet here. So I'm going to set up the data validation. Once I've created that list, I will select the column that I want to use for data validation, and then I go to data and choose data validation. And what I want to do under criteria is I want to choose list from a range, and then I will click on this little table icon here to select the range. Go to my data validation sheet and select column A, click OK, and click Save. And now all of my cells in column B have this little drop-down menu that's created by data validation. And anywhere I have something that doesn't fit in that data validation, for example, when I misspelled economics in this first cell here, I have the little red indicator in the invalid message, so I can click the drop-down and choose the correct option. So number 1 tip is to be consistent. The second tip is to make sure you use values in your cells. In other words, don't use X's. So as an example here, sometimes you might see something like this where you've got X's that indicate which column is true. You don't want to do that with your data. You want to have the values, not an X. So a better way to set up this data here for which fiscal year something is like I have here in column A, where the actual value is in the cell rather than an X. The third tip is that you sometimes have to actually do a little bit of manual work before you can use Explore. And in particular, sometimes you have to add some of your own calculations manually. In this example here, we have check-in and check-out time for employees. And if I want to have any data about total duration or time spent working, I need to first add this column of duration manually. And so you have to do a little exploring some cases to find the formulas to do those. But in general, they're fairly simple. And if you do those simple calculations manually, you'll be able to get a lot more information out of Explore. So those 3 tips are really good ways to set you up to get the most out of Explore. Be consistent, use your data validation, you enter values in your cells, not X's, and manually add in some important calculations so you can get more out of Explore. Have fun exploring.